Cisco 49 is deep in the heart. Like Joe Montana in the corner, D. Clark. Garrison Hurst, stiff farm going 99. Don't get it twisted, one and all with prime time. John Taylor, Jerry Rice down the sideline.
This is the 49er Faithful UK show, and this is week 4. The New England Patriots visit Levi's Stadium. Both teams are 1 and 2. Both teams sit bottom of their divisions, and both teams are coming off the back of a loss to a division rival. A few short weeks ago, this looked like a routine win. It's suddenly looking a lot more sticky and significant. I'm Gareth Ellis, and I'm joined by Paul Hope.
What's up, Faithful?
And Lee Gowland.
Evening, fellas. How are you doing?
Good evening. Good evening. Are you both staying dry? I know Lee hasn't been.
So that's a question for you, Paul.
Weather-wise, not today. The northeast has lived up to its rainy. It's rainy. Yeah, it's poured it down all day today, Gareth. So it hasn't been a great day, buddy.
Yeah, but are we feeling better than on Monday, despite the weather?
I'm feeling better for our group therapy, Lee. I think I felt a lot better after chatting to you two fine gentlemen.
Yeah, so I'm definitely feeling better because all along, even before we kicked the ball this year, I turned around and said it's going to be week 4 by the time we hit the ground running.
Kicked the ball?
And, sorry?
Kicked a ball.
Kicked the ball. Well, you know what I mean. Well, you kick the ball.
You do. You kick off. You are.
Come on.
You're just...
So before we'd even thrown a pass or handed the ball off, or made a sack, before we'd done any of that, I said week 4 is when it's all going to kick into place. It's going to kick into gear, and we're going to start our season properly. We're going to see what we made of, and I still believe that. We're at week 4 now. I'm looking forward to the game, and I'm over it now. I watched a podcast on Tuesday night with Ty Olsen and Mariah Faithfully, and she had my energy from Monday night. But she was using a lot of words that I don't normally use on a podcast. So I enjoyed watching that because that was like a therapy session. So, yeah, I'm good to go.
Good. Well, match up against the Patriots. Obviously, AFC team, not a team we've actually faced that much, but there is some history because Lee has dug in to the archives to come back with History Corner for the first time this season. I'll be looking forward to this.
Yeah, I mean, like I said off air, I thought I'd better do a History Corner because I thought this was the episode that Nadji was coming back. I thought, well, if I don't do a History Corner, I'm not going to get the chance to speak tonight. So I better get me homework done. So the 49ers lead the head-to-head 9-5. There's only been 14 meetings between the two teams. And tonight's History Corner is going to concentrate on a particular game from 2012 under the Sunday night primetime lights. It was a memorable game. It was a high-scoring game, ending 41-34, with the Patriots scoring 24 points in the fourth quarter alone. But don't let that fool you into thinking the Patriots were getting their points in garbage time, because the score was 31-31 midway through the fourth quarter. The Niners had actually ended the fourth quarter with a 21-point lead. Now, where have we heard that before? So yeah, it was a big scoreline. The scoreline was actually the second time that season that game had ended 41-34. The first one was the Giants beating the Bucs in September, and it was actually only the 6th time in history that it's been done, 41-34. And that 2012 game was the last time it's been done. It hasn't been done since. So the time of possession battle was actually only separated by 26 seconds. To show you how close the game was. And the total offensive yards for the game came out at 908 yards. So you can see it was a bit of an offensive game. Colin Kaepernick, he threw for 221 yards and an amazing 4 touchdowns in those yardage. He also threw an interception. Frank Gore rushed for 83 yards and 21 carries. And Michael Cashtree had 107 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Randy Moss also managed to get into the end zone against his former team, what would turn out to be his final season as a player. He retired after the Super Bowl. Tom Brady threw for 443 yards, but was also picked off twice. There were 6 turnovers in total, 2 by the Niners and 4 by the Pats. Do your job didn't particularly work for Belichick that night. The 49ers ended up finishing the season with a regular season record of 10-3-1, and the Pats finished with a 10-4 record. So we were quite evenly matched all throughout the season, and definitely in this game, which is probably one of the most memorable games as far as the 49ers Pats rivalry is concerned. And that's History Corner.
Thank you, Lee. I've missed History Corner. It's been nice to get a bit of context for the games. And yeah, I'll probably take that result and that game all over again. Different personnel.
Definitely.
Yeah, we'll take that. Injury reports. We'll start with the Patriots. The Patriots are pretty beat up. They've got some O-line and secondary players. Not secondary. Outside linebacker. And Alex Austin, who is a cornerback. I'm trying to read off two screens. Both did not practice. And on the offensive line, Mike Jordan and Vidarian Lowe, the well-known Vidarian Lowe, did not practice. They have a whole list of players that I won't go through all of them who are limited practice this week, but that's people like centre David Andrews, cornerback Christian Gonzalez, and tight end Hunter Henry, who are some of the few names off the Pats list that I actually recognise. The Pats are pretty much a shadow of what they once were not that long ago, and they got, I think, badly beaten by the Jets. Injuries are not helping them, but unfortunately injuries are not helping us either. Javon Hargrave, it looks like he's done for the season. I haven't heard whether he's actually been placed onto IR yet, but it looks like he is not going to be participating for the rest. Debo, I think, is still out. We know Christian McCaffrey is out. Trent Williams didn't practice with an illness, but I think he is good to go. D. Winters didn't practice. He'd only just come back from injury and seemed to aggravate it, playing on special teams against the Rams. Kittle, still not sure. I think he's limited practice. But Brock Purdy, who appeared on the injury report with some back soreness, is back at full practice. I think from our point of view, lads, obviously Javon Hargrave is the big one. I would say, certainly in terms of money, that's a big miss. But is he going to be that big of a miss?
Well, ironically, I think he put in one of his better games for us in the last game. So had he been going forward with that type of form, then potentially, yes, he is going to be a big miss. But if we're going to get the same type of form that we had from him last season, I wouldn't have thought so. I kind of mentioned this on the show last night, in the live show. I'm actually looking forward to Malik Collins getting a lot more snaps and Jordan Elliott getting a lot more snaps because I think either one of them could step up and do a good job for us. Obviously, Malik Collins has been brought in to be more of a pass rusher than a run stopper, but we'll have to see how the guys get on because at the moment, Hargrave doesn't look value for money in my eyes.
Yeah,
do you agree, Paul?
He hasn't lived up to the billing, Paul.
Yeah, we touched upon this on the live show, Gareth. He came in to a lot of fanfare because of what he did at the Eagles, but I think the Eagles' defense was set up different to ours. Me and Lee talked about the fact that he hasn't had those bigger body tackles beside him. He hasn't been what we thought. He hasn't generated the pressure, but ironically, he had one of his better games against the Rams. And it's that kind of next man mentality in the NFL. You started tonight's show with the injury report for the Pats. We've got our own injury concerns. This amazing game that we all love is a violent, beautiful sport, and there's going to be players beat up on every roster in the NFL. So it goes to show you, as you said, the conditioning, the strength. I think Lee's touched upon it before, the way that Shanahan practices with the team. I think that doesn't do us any kind of good. I think he likes that intensity in practice, but it leads to injuries, and especially when you've got an older squad like ours and the amount of games we've played over the last few years. So, like Lee, I'm looking forward to seeing Jordan Elliott. Hopefully Collins can step up, but we need something from the run defence this week, Gareth. I know we're going to get into it all, but to answer your question, yes, I think Hargrave will be a miss.
Yeah, it's for every man's miss is another man's opportunity, isn't it? I am concerned about Trent Williams. I know it's only an illness. I say only an illness, but it's one of those ones that how serious is it? Has he got a bit of flu, or is it something that's going to put him out? Because I think we've said before, there's without Trent Williams, the whole quality of our O-line becomes a lot more suspect.
So apparently it wasn't just Trent Williams either. It was Trent Williams, Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan. They were all sick. They were sick of watching Bell drop the ball. That's what it was.
You had to go there, didn't you?
Had to go there.
Monday's show wasn't enough of a Ronnie Bash. You've had to come back in.
Hang on. Brett Sinclair, Lee Gowland has read your message and he received loud and clear.
That wasn't a dad joke. Come on. Give us a break.
It was a Brett Sinclair joke. It wasn't a dad
Brett
joke.
Sinclair joke. Yeah, it was.
This is quite low key, but I think D. Winters was a player I was looking forward to seeing, and I think there was potentially an opportunity if some of the rumours we've heard about Devondre's poor performances having been noted, that there was an opportunity for one of the younger linebackers to maybe come in. So I think that is quite a big loss, because I would quite like to see what D. Winters could do, given that we kept him over Jalen Graham, who I thought would have made the team. So Winters clearly has the edge, and I hope we get to see him on the field sometime soon.
I think that'll have an impact, Gareth. I was hoping to see DFF drop to special teams only and Winters come in there, because I think obviously we saw Flanagan Falls fall over. Lee mentioned it on the pod, and I thought special teams has been atrocious. So I was kind of hoping that maybe he could have gone back to special teams and D. Winters could have come in there. So like you said, I think that was an important one to mention. So
yeah. You've got graphically the Patriots offense versus the Niners defense. Paul, have you been looking at this?
Yeah, well, in Nadji's absence, I never know whether he's going to join
Reliable.
us. So, who would have thought it, chaps? Heading into this game, we'd have the same record as the Patriots. And as you pointed out, Gareth, this offense scored 3 points against the Jets on Thursday Night Football. But don't let that fool you, faithful. They had played well up until that game. Interestingly, Gareth, when you go back and watch the game tape, against the Jets, they abandoned the run. They came out and tried to be clever. They tried to go kind of play action to begin with. And I think they only rushed the ball 15 times. And when you go back and look at the game tape, week 1, they upset the Bengals, who everybody seems to tip for great things under Burrows. I think they rushed the ball 36, 37 times. They then went up against the Seahawks, rushed the ball again 36, 37 times, narrowly lost to the NFC West leaders in overtime.
Oh, don't say that.
Yeah, well,
don't use that phrase.
I'm hoping that I'm kind of reverse psychology and a little bit of jinx going on, but got to get that there. The Patriots offense starts with the quarterback. According to Next Gen Stats, which I know you like, Gareth, no starting quarterback has seen a greater pressure percentage at 47.6% in the NFL over these last few weeks than Jacoby Brissett. It's well documentedly that the Patriots' offensive line is not what it was. They've given up 9 sacks on the season, Gareth, the 8th most in the NFL. They've struggled predominantly in pass protection, which is why I was surprised they abandoned the run against the Jets. It just seemed crazy to me. You mentioned about injuries. Their offensive line is struggling. There's a mix of injuries, rookies. But when you go and watch the Patriots podcasts, which I've done the last few days to get a feel for what their fans are saying, they're absolutely raging that their front office have not strengthened the offensive line. Apparently it's something they've been calling out for the last couple of years. It's rumoured why Belichick
familiar.
But yeah, that's what I wanted to start with, the offensive line, because I looked at Cole Strange, So, Law, as you mentioned, are the starters that are currently injured, and the trickle-down effect has been the struggles at quarterback. Now, Brissett has only thrown for 398 yards and 1 touchdown this season. When preparing for tonight, as I said, I did speak to a few of the Patriots fans on Twitter that I follow, and the frustration at the offensive line is just, they're absolutely raging, chaps. They can't understand why it wasn't addressed. But they're allowing the pressure, as I said, 47% on dropbacks, the worst rate in the NFL. That's the 16th worst 3-game start by a franchise since 2006. The reason that's importantly is that's the first year that they've charted the pressures was 2006. So the offensive line for the Patriots, Gareth, is absolutely terrible. And to make it worse, if your offensive line isn't playing well, what do you need your quarterback to do, chaps? I'll ask you the question before I give you the answer. If you're struggling with your offensive line, what do you need your quarterback to do?
Get the ball out quick.
And what does Jacoby Brissett not do, Gareth?
Get the ball out quick.
So according to Next Gen Stats, he's averaging at least 3 seconds per attempt, which is the 5th slowest time in the NFL. And it's not what you need. If your offensive line is struggling, you need the quarterback to get the ball out of his hands. We saw what Stafford did. We saw what Rodgers is doing for the Jets. So I don't know about you, Lee, before I move on to other areas of the offense. This was somewhere I wanted to start with. I mean, is it an area you think we're going to bounce back well against this offensive line? And you think Brissett's going to be in for a game? Because I wanted to ask you these questions before we move on to the receivers and the running backs.
So the opportunity is there. It's definitely there because they've got a poor O-line. But as you've said, the first 2 games, they were a run-first team. And for some reason, they abandoned that against the Jets. They started off with play action. I don't know if they were trying to catch the Jets napping because they were expecting a run because of the way they played the first 2 games. So it all comes down to how they're going to play against us. I think one of the things they're going to try and do is basically run up the gut. Because of the way we set up, we only rush 4 people, and both of our edges are quite wide compared to our defensive tackles, which means there's glaring gaps in the middle, which is why we're so poor at run defense. And I think that's what they're going to try and attack. They're going to try and attack those areas. And if they're doing that, then Jacoby Brissett's going to be handing the ball off anyway. So we're not going to be getting the pressure to him when he's making a throw because they're going to try and run all the time. So that's one reason why we might not be able to take advantage of the offensive line. And it's probably the perfect reason for them to do it because they've got a poor offensive line. So there's opportunities, definitely. Whether or not we can take advantage of those all depends on how the Pats come to play.
Well, I'm glad he's done his homework, Gareth, because all the fans listening are thinking, right, this is where Paul and Lee get excited and say Nick Bosa's going to have 20 sacks and they're going to feast all night. But when you go back and watch that Jets game, it's strange because, as you said, Lee, they've got Ramon Stevenson and Antonio Gibson have been a great 1-2 for the Patriots this year. Gibson was added, Gareth, in free agency to be a bit of a third down pass catching back. But he's actually put in some good shifts in those first 2 games. He's averaging 6.2 yards per carry, and 30% of his carries have gone for first downs. So on the ground, the Patriots are averaging 144.3 yards per game, and that's 8th best in the NFL. And we've seen what you can do in this league. If you can run the ball well, it opens up the passing game. And as you said, Lee, the fact that they abandoned that against the Jets, I think they were trying to be too clever because it was an in-division game. I think they were trying to be too cute, but it actually played into the Jets' defense's strengths. And the reason I wanted to start there, Gareth, is a lot of people think our scheme is very similar to the Jets with that wide 9, as Lee's alluded to. But I wouldn't be surprised to see the Patriots come out, all guns blazing, running that ball up the middle. What do you think, Gareth? Me and Gowland got it right, or are we disappearing down a rabbit hole that you're going to need to throw your warning sign that you've got for us tonight?
No, I think you're right. I think if there was any doubt about that, obviously Javon Hargrave being out has probably cemented their offensive approach to the game, which is they are going to test us through the middle. I think they're going to try and batter. And we've got to be up for that. That's got to be the first order of business is making sure that they don't get those productive yards and seeing the run game open. It's funny we're talking about a team running the ball successfully and then getting behind and abandoning the run and going to the pass and it not working. I think we've talked about that before, and it wasn't about the Patriots. So it's funny. Maybe it's an accepted coaching practice. I get why when you're behind late in the game you move to passing the ball, and obviously that's got to be part of our game plan, I think, at home, which is same as always. Get a lead, but this time hold it, not let it fade away, or not let it get taken away from us. I think this has on paper, this has got a good opportunity for a good match up there. If the Pats can establish the run, I do wonder the way we have been out of sorts, whether there's Pats fans who are potentially quietly confident that if they can establish the run on us, they might be able to find some holes in the secondary and might be able to put a better performance in than they did against the Jets, and actually score a few points. I think that's probably going to be one of the key matchups. If we can stop that run, that should win us the game. If they can run on us, maybe it's going to have to come to something else. Shall we look at the other side? Or have you got
just before we move off that? Yeah, so do you not think this is an opportunity for Devondre Campbell?
Yeah.
Because he is a run-stopping linebacker.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've been doing for the last couple of weeks is playing a lot of man coverage, a lot more than what we normally play, because we normally play zone coverage on defense. Do you not think it's an opportunity to rush 5 people with Devondre Campbell being that 5th person through one of the gaps? Because 1, it's bringing more pressure anyway, and 2, it's going to plug one of those gaps that they're going to try and run through. And he's absolutely garbage in coverage anyway, so there's no point in him being down in the secondary. So it makes all the sense to me for him to be a 5th rusher.
It's a good point, Lee, because one thing I wanted to say before we moved off, as much as we started with Gibson, Stevenson's prone to fumbling the ball. I think he's had 3 fumbles in 3 games, and obviously Fred Warner with the punch out. But like Lee said there, maybe Campbell, this could be an opportunity for him to get right there. And as much as establishing the run, normally you were talking about the offensive line, you talked about Trent Williams being, if he's missing, our line falls to pieces. Unfortunately for the Patriots, all of them are just as bad as each other. And that's the message that I'm getting when I plugged into Patriots land this week. All of them are allowing pressures. It's not just the right side, it's not the left side. All of them are giving up sacks and they're really struggling. So regardless whether it's a pass play or a run play, but I think what Lee said there might be, remember we talked last week about Sorensen being under pressure, the same as Ryan's. Maybe Sorensen needs to be into his bag of tricks this week, Gareth, and maybe it needs to be something different. And hopefully we're talking about the Campbell bounce back show. So that must mean Lee's got a bold prediction for him, because this man comes to the show prepared.
I think that's good. I did notice against the Rams, I think we saw corner and safety blitz more frequently we have. It's not something we've often seen under previous defensive coordinators, and I wonder if there's an opportunity there to mix up that personnel. And the blitz is right; it's perhaps the wrong people blitzing. So let's see. I think, as you've said, with the offensive line, get at them early. I think we're more likely to be able to rattle them with blitzes than we are to give up the big play to Kobe Bissett and a handful of journeyman receivers. Is that fair? We haven't really talked about the wide receivers. You were saving it, Paul.
Yeah,
I mean, talking about.
I was looking at some of the names on the list. I mean, obviously Hunter Henry is a miss, as he was brought in for a lot of money as that kind of tight end that could rival maybe his Kittle and Kelsey. And I remember a few years ago he was quite high on people's fantasy football list. The passing game is last place in the NFL at the moment. They're only averaging 102 yards per game, or a good quarter for Brock Purdy, you may add. So I'll get that one out there. But it's not all Brissett's fault. As you said, we always gush about the weapons that Brock has. This Patriots team isn't the Patriots of old, as you both said. I mean, Juju Schuster is never going to have another season like he had a few years ago. And it's one of those receivers where he kind of like is trading on his name. And I think that's another frustrating for the Patriots fans. They've kind of, one of the shows I was watching last night where the Patriots showed, they were all kind of bemoaning the luck. And I jumped in the chat and said, at least you've got those Lombardis from recent times to give you kind of hope for the future. But I think they've just fallen from grace so much. And they're just a shadow of themselves. So preparing for tonight, I focused on the run game. I focused on the offensive line. But receiver-wise, Lee, I don't know about you, but no one jumped off the page for me when preparing for tonight.
Kendrick Bourne's still out, I think.
Mean, yeah, they're not very well known names. I can't see any issues there with the receivers. And I mean, this game, and again, I've been saying it since pre-season, this game is a game that we should win easily and we should win big. And that's what I'm expecting on Sunday night. My expectations have been set for at least 4 weeks now. So, and as we talked about in the pre-show meet, I have a figure in my head for what that's going to look like. So
we will get to that. But who's going to score it? Let's have a look at the Niners offense and how it matches up against the Patriots defense. Defense was one of the strengths. I think it's remained good, but I think it's struggled again so far this season. Though of course it's the complementary football. If your offense is struggling, it's difficult for even a good defense to keep your opponents out of the end zone for the whole game if your offense can't move the ball or can't hold the ball for any period of time. On the defensive side, we've obviously got Brock, possibly not Kittle, definitely not Debo, definitely not CMC. So it's Juwan Jennings, it's Brandon Ayuk. Are we going to attack through the air, or do you think this is a Jordan Mason back to triple figures game?
I think it has to be a Jordan Mason back to triple figures game. The Pats defense, you're saying they're a good defense, they're actually ranked 27th in DVOA. So that should provide Purdy with plenty of opportunities to make plays. Defense. Yeah, they were a good defense. And I think even without CMC, I think we can stretch the Pats front seven with Jordan Mason, maybe set for another 100-plus game. And it all starts with Shandorf's outside zone rushing attack. However, I am expecting the Pats to take a leaf out the Vikings book. And I think DeMarcus Covington, the Pats DC, is going to play 5 or 6 man fronts early in the game, just as Brian Flores did for the Vikings, so that he can provide support to the outside zone and stop us running outside. I think if he's done his homework, that's what he'll do. So even though I think running is the right way to go, I think Kyle needs to stick with it, because I think in the first quarter, it's going to look a little bit pedestrian, for want of a better word. What do you think, Paul?
It's a good word to talk about the run game.
I'm just impressed you've done your homework, boss, and you're sprinkling in DVOA stats. I'm beaming. Alex Simpson will get that reference. This was a difficult one. You and Gareth kind of, over the last 2 shows, Gareth's talked about some of the strengths from last season, and you've talked about that. But then you kind of like, there's only been 3 games this year. Belichick's not there. They've had a turnover on the coaching staff on both sides of the ball. To back up my buddy Gareth, the Patriots defense last year was one of the better NFL defenses, and they didn't really have a turnover of the players. They allowed an average of 3.3 yards per rush last year, Gareth, which is key because that was the lowest mark in the league and the lowest in franchise history since the merger in 1970. They finished 7th in the NFL in fewest yards allowed and 5th in fewest first downs allowed. And as you said, Lee, you go and watch the Jets game and you think, we're putting 50 on these. But you go and watch the Bengals game, you go watch them against the Seahawks, and you're right. I think the linebackers could be key for the Patriots here. It wasn't surprising to see them miss Bentley on a short week last week against that physical Jets team. His leadership and tackling ability is something the Patriots fans have gushed about, and he seemed irreplaceable. Tavai and McMillan were credited with 5 combined missed tackles of the 11 last week against the Jets. And you said it right, they're going to have a tougher test this week. They're going up against Jordan Mason. The hype train is still pulling out the station. If you haven't got your tickets, jump on now. But we talk about this year, the Patriots' run defense is 5th in the league in yards per game at 83 and yards per rush at 3.7. But as we've said, this is arguably their toughest test. So I think last week, chaps, people were talking about us running the ball more, and I think I would like to see us at that 35 to 40 rush attempts with Brock Purdy sprinkled in with some play action. So that's what I'm hoping for, Lee. And hopefully Shanahan sets a tone early. And hopefully Garendo can have double his carries, Gareth. If Garendo can have 10 carries this week, my play watch will keep getting better and better.
Well, if Garendo does have 10 carries this week, I hope he actually identifies the gap and runs through it this time.
Me too.
Because that was the only thing that let him down a little bit.
However, last week he didn't fumble. He didn't make any mistakes. You know what Shanahan's like with a rookie. So I think it was kind of easing him in. But if you go watch his college tape play with Garendo, it's either boom or bust. It was either those 2 or 3 yards, or like you said, he hit the gap and he had that speed to go. But I'm feeling fairly confident. You look at this Patriots defense, like you said there, they've changed across the board. DeMarcus Covington was the defensive line coach for the last 4 seasons. He's been elevated up. And I watched an interview from the summer, Gareth, when they asked him about his philosophy and what does he want. You know, does he make the players fit to the scheme? And he was very much a player's coach. He was like, I look at the players I've got I look at the opponent we go up against and I make the players come first. The scheme fits the players and not the other way around. And like you said, Lee, Flores has kind of put a bit of a blueprint out there, which most teams will be looking at and thinking, right, can we replicate this? The Red Rushers are good. Kieran White is having a good year. Joshua Ulshi is showing that he's probably one of the better pass rushers in the NFL. He just needs to be a bit more reliable. So, again, you look at the cornerbacks, the two Joneses are playing well at the back end. Christian Gonzalez has shown some improvement. So they've got 3 decent corners there, Gareth, which if the run isn't working for us, Joanne Jennings had a game of the ages last week. Brandon Ayuk, chaps. I don't know if you've seen those stats, Lee. There's a lot of talk about Ayuk not getting separation, but when you look at the stats, he actually is getting separation. And I think you've touched upon this before. It's because teams are defending him differently. They're going in a lot of zone coverage this year rather than man coverage. So I think their defence is the strength of this Patriots team, Gareth. I don't know whether you agree with me, chaps.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned Ayuk. Can you remember what I said the D signed his contract?
I'm sure you'll remind us,
boss, before we see the real Brandon Ayuk, and that's what I'm expecting again. I'm expecting Ayuk to come out and have a really good game. So it's taken him 3 weeks to get up to speed, and now it's going to be this game where he lets loose. And not only is he going to let loose, but so's Jennings. He's going to be let loose again. So I think we've got 2 wide receivers here who can do some major damage to the Pats defense. The only thing I'm worried about is, again, if Covington goes back to how the Vikings played, if he's smart enough, and granted this is his first season as a DC, if he's smart enough to disguise the coverage on the pre-snap read and then have the defense make a post-snap rotation to confuse Purdy, that might end up seeing a few turnovers from us. But I don't think he is. Not a first-year DC. I don't think he's got the experience to do that. And to be honest, if he's trying to implement that after only 1 or 2 weeks seeing that Vikings game, I don't think the defense are going to be good enough to do that at the moment. So they could do that, and they might attempt to do that. I think it's high risk, high reward for the Pats because they haven't been playing that way previously. So it's either going to work for them or it's going to blow up spectacularly in the face. And again, I think we need to establish the run, but I actually think this is going to be a pass-heavy game, and that is reflected in my bold predictions later on as well.
Well, one flaw to their plan, which I thought you were going to let out the bag there because your bold prediction, they tried it a little bit against the Jets, Lee, but they didn't contain Rodgers in the pocket. Now, Rodgers is one of the better mobile quarterbacks. I know he's coming off that injury, but we've seen what Brock Purdy can do, and I think Brock might trust his legs a bit more in this if they're trying to disguise those looks. But if they can't contain him in the pocket, I think Rodgers scrambled for 18 yards. He was 5 for 5 for 62 yards and a touchdown when he broke containment. And I think we're seeing Brock be a bit more confident in that league. He's going through his progressions, and if it's not there, pulling the ball in. I mean, we all joked about that one where he had enough time to kind of listen to an Adji monologue, text me, you, maybe check, running around. We've got to sprinkle Najee some love because we're missing him. But you're right, Lee. I think the secondary hasn't lived up to the expectations. And if you look, they've allowed 600 yards from Seattle and the Jets. So the 28th place in the league. They've allowed 244.3 yards per game. And they're going up against a good San Francisco unit that is second in passing in the NFL. So where we want this run-heavy offense, El Presidente has clearly done his homework and say, actually, and I can't wait for his bold prediction to see how his many points are spread around the team.
Some good points there. I think it's definitely Ayuk has got an opportunity to silence some of the criticism he's had. I think it obviously shows the fact that he hasn't been running routes for Brock for the last 6-7 weeks. A couple of times last week where he got open and was perhaps missed or forgotten about because Purdy's used to him not being there. So hopefully, maybe it's a silver lining of Debo being out and Kittle being limited, that Brock can focus on getting practice reps with throwing the ball to Ayuk. Jennings, I think Jennings is going to continue to have a decent game. Let's keep off Ronnie Bell, but Jacob Cowing was mentioned, and people were suggesting why hasn't he had a chance. Shanahan is saying that he's not quite there yet, so I'm not sure he's going to be much of a factor in this game. Eric Sauber, I think we mentioned again. I think he potentially will be. I think he's going to slowly earn more targets in this offense. And one thing you mentioned with Flores, I think confusing Brock Purdy. One thing I have an expectation of Brock about that he will recognise that, and he will spend an awful lot of time reviewing that Vikings defensive formation and why he struggled to make a decision. And the next time, it's not going to have the same impact because he's going to have worked out, that's what this is showing me. This is how I counter it. Maybe there was a part of that with him scampering along, and that's how you keep a defensive coordinator honest, isn't it? If you're going to show me these looks and confuse me, I'm just going to run for the first down, mate. Try again. So maybe that was an impact we saw on the Rams game. Though I do think more of that was Brock running for his life at times. Shall we move on to the scores? Unless there's any final bits you want to wrap up on our offense? Anyone we've not mentioned? Let's keep up the offensive line. We'll hope Trent Williams will play. And yeah, I think we've covered a lot of people on that offensive line need to have a better game.
I think it's pleasing to see Brock answer his critics. He's been put to the test this year. We've heard the talk he needs the Avengers. His offence has been battered with key injuries.
It's one of his best games last week.
He's accurate and efficient, Gareth. 72.6% of his passes, 4 touchdowns to 1 interception. And like you said, that it wasn't on Brock, the loss last week. And I'm still flabbergasted by people saying it was like watching a Jimmy offence. I'm hoping those people have listened to the group therapy, gone back and watched the game tape, because it just gets better and better. When you take the emotion out of it, Lee, and you go back and watch that tape and you see some of the throws and you see him, he's growing each week, the way he's commanding this offense, and you can see Kyle fully trusts him. So I'm looking forward to the game Lee's calling. So I'm going to shut up now because we're getting to the good bit of the show, everybody.
Well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned about Kyle trusting Purdy. It's obvious he's trusted him because he's allowing him to make the decision on whether or not it's going to be a run or a pass play based off his pre-snap read. And that's obvious. I don't think he ever gave Jimmy that luxury because everyone knew Jimmy couldn't read a defense.
Well, we mentioned Brandon. Got to remember the Patriots made Brandon Ayuk one of the higher offers. They were going to pay him big bucks. So could this be where disgruntled Ayuk shows the Patriots what they're missing? I mean, the Rams took him out of the game last week and it just opened up for Juwan Jennings. Do we see the Patriots focus on Jennings? Do we see Ayuk go off? Who knows, Gareth? I'm sure we'll have some bold predictions mentioning those names just in a little bit.
Practically seamless. Let's look at our score predictions. But first, the Niners are 10.5 point favourites, which again is pretty good. And the over-under is 40.5. This novelty, I'm still top of the table, aren't I? I'm going to have to go first. I don't think I did this at all last season, so I will enjoy it. I am going to go for a Niners win. I think this is a great opportunity. We're back at home. There should be a lot of players with something to prove. There should be a lot of players who are angry with what they've been seeing on the game tape this week, and they want to go out and set that right. That's what I hope. Anything less than that is unacceptable. And I have got that producing a 30-10 Niners win.
Silence, Gareth. It's as if you've just stole a show.
It's as if you both had almost exactly the same.
So I guess I'm going to have to go next because I'm second.
You are.
This is where did he let his heart rule his head, everybody? Because me and Gareth know what his score prediction is.
So 50 burger, baby. 50 burger is what I hope it's going to be. But in the interest of competitiveness.
Yes, I know.
I knew this would win out.
We both had 50 burgers on the pre-season show, didn't we? And now it comes down to it. But
I'm going to go with a 42-9 game.
So he's trying to be all sensible. Instead of going for 50, he's just going for 42. I love it, Lee. I love it.
Winded it back in. Paul, what have you got?
Well, I have the Niners winning. as I said in the group chat earlier, no surprise. For context, we don't share the scores, but Nadji was obviously having a bit of a chat before we went live. And I've gone for a 31-10 victory, Gareth. So you have obviously been doing your homework the same as me.
Yeah,
so one of us will be happy.
Well, or both of us could be. Not quite.
Yeah.
Not we can't get identical, but there we are.
So we didn't get a Nadji score, did we?
We didn't, not yet. We shall prod him before this goes
I think
live.
he said he wanted to know what all our scores were first. And I thought he was joking, but it's clearly a strategy that he's trying. Nadji, it isn't working, son. We're bottom. Yeah, we're bottom, son. Try something different, mate.
Well, actually, if he's bottom, he's right, isn't he? You get to hear the other score predictions first. So we'll let him know, and we'll fill that in prior to the game. Some boldies. I've got us with 5 turnovers, 2 forced fumbles, and 3 interceptions.
Putting any names to those, or are you just throwing that number out there, Gareth?
I think Fred is going to force a fumble. I think Diamodola is going to force a fumble. I think Demo's also going to get an interception. I wonder for the other interceptions. I'm going to say we're going to get like a big man interception, something like a Malik Collins. He's just going to put his hands up in the air, bat it straight up, and it's just going to come down for him. How about that? And he's going to rumble it in 70-odd yards, but not quite in for the touchdown, obviously.
The Javon Kinlaw one was great a few years ago. I mean, you stole a few off mine, but I think Hufanga gets a big moment in this week. Either a forced fumble, because I think Hufanga might be used in that coming forward on the pressure, or he has
blitz,
like you said, a blitz.
Force a fumble on the blitz.
I had Warner as a forced fumble, but that's not really bold these days, is it? Lee? So I'll go with a Huff interception, and I go for Nick Bosa doubling his sack record for the season, and Nick Bosa's going to get 2 sacks in this game, which will put him on to 4 for the season. Over to you, boss.
That's not really bold, is it?
It is, given his standards of this year. He's played 3 games and he's only got 2 sacks already. So I'll add another one then. Bosa's getting 3 sacks.
Hold my beer.
No thanks, because it'll have a fireball in there.
This is how you make a bold prediction, Paul.
I'm
going to brace yourself. Nick Bosa, 7 sacks.
That is bold.
7 sacks. He's going to have a game of his life. Nick Bosa, 7 sacks. Diamodola, 2 interceptions.
I mean,
Brock Purdy, 420 plus yards, 4 touchdowns, and a perfect passer rating.
Hang on, you can't just come in and steal the offensive one. Here's how you make a bold prediction. Sport defense, but he's the boss. Go on, Lee.
Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings to have 120 plus yard games each. And that's my 4. And I did say I only had 1 of each.
But
there's my 4.
I've got Ayuk down for 2 touchdowns on this game. I think he's gonna come back and get a couple of red zone targets and prove a point.
Yeah, I had Ayuk for 2 touchdowns. I mean, circling back to the Bosa thing, Lee, I mean, he has got the team leading 10 QB pressures. And it's going to be interesting when we come on this show on Monday night and Bosa's got like 5 sacks or something, and El Presidente is like, I'm disappointed, chaps. Yet again, my bold prediction. Yeah. You only got 5, like the Juwan Jennings. So I've got Ayuk 2 touchdowns. I think Mason gets 2 touchdowns, but I think one of them is a receiving touchdown. There is my bold prediction. I think Kyle Shanahan might say, come on, Jordan, you've been using that jugs machine in the summer. So I think we sprinkle one of them in the end zone. So there's my 4 touchdowns. And obviously we're going to see Moody kick a field goal. And like you said, Lee, Brock Purdy, what many yards did you say Brock Purdy was getting?
420 plus.
I think he's getting 500. I'll up your bold prediction.
There you go. That's a bold prediction then, Paul. You're learning.
Yeah. Excellent.
Gareth's looking at the pair of us thinking, God, my bold predictions are pretty crap compared to them.
I've lost my bold edge, I think, this season. I've been scaling it back. It's difficult to tell what is bold anymore. It's
this is where he comes in with a special teams bold prediction, Lee, because with that atrocious, the only way is up. So come on, Gareth, give us a special teams.
The special teams bold prediction is special teams don't lose us this game.
That is bold.
That is bold.
See, what you should be doing, Gareth, is seeing 2 special team kick returns for touchdowns. That's bold.
Yeah, bold, not insane.
Yeah, we're in the season mode now. We're not pre-season mode where we get away with it. We're in the season mode. I did struggle with this one at first because, like you said, the way we played last week, and
it's the inconsistency, I think, as well. It's been a struggle to say what are we going to do? What can we do? We've been inconsistent. So, but something we can do is offer everyone in the UK faithful game day threads. And I think we might be shaking that up a little bit based on the sort of usage and engagement. Do you want to explain it, Lee? Because you probably can better than me.
Yeah, so we're going to go back to doing what we did last year. And the only reason it stopped is because we all forgot to do it. So last year, during the actual game, we suspended posting to the group. So that would drive people to the game day threads. Ideally, we'd like everybody over onto Discord for the Discord game day thread because that works much better. The participation on Facebook has dwindled as people have transferred across to Discord. So what we're going to do for this week is we're going to trial it, and we're going to not have a we're going to not have a Facebook thread for the game day. We're going to get everybody on Discord instead. And like I said, we're going to suspend posting during the actual game so that it kind of forces people over to Discord. And then as soon as the game's finished, it'll open back up with the reaction thread, and we can put all of our reaction into that. So hopefully it'll work.
Yeah, I think the reason for it, Gareth, is what we found with the Facebook game day thread. Notifications are a bit weird with Facebook. And it didn't always follow.
Gets them all out of order. And you can't follow it.
If you
could be in the middle of the third quarter and all of a sudden you see a comment come up, which was obviously from the start of the first quarter, and it's just all out of kilter.
I would say you don't have to join the game day threads. I know I tend to message certain people. I tend to stay off the game day thread in real time, Gareth, because I don't want to spoil if my stream's behind on Game Pass. But equally, as Lee said, the game day thread is there for people to engage. If it is your first one, just a bit of a spoiler alert, do maybe give it 30 seconds, because there's been many a time where I think all three of us have been on a game day thread and something pops up and you think, we scored a touchdown here then. Good, by the gifts and the celebrations. But we are obviously listening to the group and we're going off the feedback. So big shout out to the Discord admins for running that, and to Eric for doing the overreaction thread. And as Lee just said there, we're not always perfect. We did forget last week to switch off the wall. We're just that excited to watch the game. So
That's it. Yeah, I think that's good advice. If you don't want spoilers, don't dip into the game day thread, immediately. Or I tend to just dip in when I know there's ad breaks or the gaps between quarters, and I give it a while and then go and catch up with what's been going on. But yeah, if your feed is a little bit later than other people's, you will have spoilers come through on the game day threads.
You know what? Here's another idea. Why don't we get everybody to just post kickoff when their game kicks off? So then you can see who's got the earlier feed and who's got the later feed, and try and work out how much time there is in between it. Yeah, and then the people who kicked off early just need to count to 20 Mississippis before the post. Yay!
However, though,
this could go badly wrong.
Can you remember when we did the Zoom call for the infamous Trey Lance and your feed was ahead of Najee's? That was legendary when you were like,
yes, yeah.
You mouthed Mac Jones to the screen, Najee's face dropped. So there is that kind of element, but it does help. As we've said before, Gareth, NFL fan in the UK can feel quite a lonely existence. So I do like the game day threads because it is a 9:25 game. We're not on Sky, so it'll be on Game Pass. And sometimes when you sat at home on your own, I know Tracy often disappears, Gareth, and she's sick of me talking to the telly. The comment last week, chaps, was, you do know they can't hear you, can you, Paul? I was like, shows you what you know, Tracy. They can clearly hear me. But I think I'm not alone as talking to TV, so I think that outlet of the game day thread can be quite good.
And it's great if you just want to follow the game day thread, if it's your first time, and you don't have to post to engage. You can lurk and watch the gifts and the gags and the jokes and the despair sometimes go by, and hot takes. Obviously, that's always good to look out for. I love a hot take. I think we'll wrap it up then, gents. It has been a pleasure, as always. Thank you to everybody who listens and watches the show. Hopefully, we will catch you on the game day thread. But if not, we will hopefully catch you when you watch the review show. Reaction thread will be on Facebook after the game, so thanks to Eric, so you will have to jump from one to the other. But hopefully, I think we're on for a good win. We need a win, and I think above all with the win, we need a good performance. I think we need to address the errors of last week, and I'm not expecting anything particularly groundbreaking, but I'm expecting the team to just go out and execute with an intensity and a precision which has been lacking. And if we do that, we should destroy the Patriots. So enjoy the game, guys, and go Niners.
Go Niners.
Bang, bang, Nana gang.
We love the San Francisco 49ers deep in the heart. Like Joe Montana in the corner, D. Clark. Gareth and Hurst, stiff farm going 99. Don't get it twisted, one and all with prime time. John Taylor, Jerry Rice down the